Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, May 19th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 107 days. The game against Michigan in 191 days. And we are getting close. We're in the home stretch of our post-spring positional recaps and kind of getting the state of the union on where things stand in all of Ohio State's different positional groups. Today, we get the last group on the defensive side of the ball, and that is the safeties, an area where Ohio State, under Jim Knowles, how many times have we heard him say it is a safety-driven defense? So a very important area, an area where Ohio State had a few critical breakdowns last year. So can they get that stuff straightened out? Because that might make a very big difference in terms of how good this defense can be, and thus how good this team can be this fall. We know our team at Buckeye Huddle is very strong, and we know a lot of that is because we are a Tony Gerdeman-driven defense. Tony is here to discuss the three big safety positions, where things stand with those guys right now. So, Tony, I guess let's start on the boundary. This is, first of all, let's define our terms. Like to do this every once in a while. So what's the difference between an X receiver and a Z receiver? It's good to kind of remind you about that stuff every once in a while. Boundary safety, when you're on one of the hash marks, you've got a field side, which is where you've got more room to work with. You've got a boundary side, which is a side where you've got less room to work with. So the boundary safety, rather expectedly, works on the short side of the field where you have a little less room to cover. And, this spring, we saw Lathan Ransom there. We saw Sonny Styles there. And it feels like that's a spot where Ohio State has to feel pretty good that they've got a couple decent options to fill all the responsibilities of that position.
Yeah, you essentially have a returning starter in Lathan Ransom back, who is now in his second year of the defense, has a much better understanding of it, and has been through the ups and downs of learning the defense and having some really good moments early in the season and then having some worse moments later in the season, but showed an ability to make some plays at times, and I think you carry that over to this season with his understanding of the defense. That understanding makes him faster, makes him quicker to decide what to do, where he's going, what he knows more what he's doing. And then behind him, Sonny Styles. And, obviously there's a segment of Buckeye fans that believe he should be out there starting no matter what because he was the number one safety in the 2022 class, and he's freakish athletic, and he's 6'4", and he's 220 pounds, and don't waste that kind of guy. But you still have to be able to defend. You still have to be able to do everything that the position requires. And he did really well with what they asked him to do as essentially a Sam last year, playing so well against Georgia, basically brought in to handle the two tight end sets for Georgia. And then Darnell Washington goes down, and it kind of minimized what he was going to be able to do, but he still had an impact in that game. So those two guys, I think, set the Buckeyes up pretty well. I'm on Twitter at times, so I've seen some concern from Buckeye fans about Lathan Ransom because they remember the touchdown that he gave up to the slot receiver from Georgia, which was a scheme issue, and then just a bad, turn by Ransom. But he had a lot of really good plays last year, and I think they expect him to do even more of that this year. And this is a guy, Tom, Ryan Day has talked glowingly about him since 2020 when he was a true freshman.
Yeah, and that's something where we saw Sonny Styles out there in crucial moments in the postseason as a true freshman last year, and it felt like, okay, this is a real stamp of validation there. We saw Lathan Ransom out there as a true freshman in the college football playoff back in 2020 against Clemson and Alabama. He was out there for some plays, some important plays during that season as well. That tells you how long they've kind of viewed him as someone they trust and someone they feel they can be out there. And, yes, that one play was a little bit of a mix of the Sean Springs slip in the 1996 Michigan game and not quite the tough Borland on Devontae Smith level. Why did you draw that up that way? But probably not one that Jim Knowles would draw up the way he did against that, on that long touchdown at the end of the Georgia game. So, yeah, don't necessarily hold that one against Lathan Ransom, but that is an area where that bandit or boundary safeties position, one where Ohio State might be feeling the best of these three safety positions, and I think they've got some good options at all three of those spots. The next one is that field safety, so this is the one who's kind of you'd typically think of this as a free safety position on, using this sort of older school terminology. If the boundary is the strong safety, the field safety, or the adjuster in Jim Knowles terms, that's sort of your old school free safety. And there you've got Josh Proctor. Josh Proctor was, I think everyone sort of assumed after last year, Josh Proctor was going to be off to the NFL at one point this spring. Big Ten Network even put out a tweet, where do you think Josh Proctor is going to be drafted? And it was like, did I miss a memo? No? Okay, no, Josh Proctor is in fact back this spring. And so he's back. This is his 6th season. He was someone who, you can go back to 2019, and Josh Proctor was playing crucial minutes against Clemson in that college football playoff semifinal in the Fiesta Bowl. He's someone who you can go back to when Greg Schiano was at Ohio State, and Greg Schiano talked about him as, that red line to red line on the practice field, the guy who can really kind of go all over the place, kind of play that center field, be a playmaker. And it hasn't necessarily panned out quite the way that I think Ohio State players or coaches or fans were maybe expecting with him. But he does seem like he has the athleticism to potentially really be that effective center fielder for them. And if not, they have a pretty talented second-year player behind him there at that adjuster position in Kai Stokes.
Yeah. And you and I remember talking to Greg Schiano about Josh Proctor, the freshman, and hearing those words. And Damon Arnett saying he reminded pretty much everybody of Malik Hooker, who was obviously the All-American free safety at Ohio State. And so I've always viewed him as this athletic guy who has a bunch of range. And then Proctor, I don't even know what year it was or what hit it was. He throws in a big hit, and then Ohio State fans just only view him as like this quasi-linebacker, strong safety, big hitter type. And it's like, he's way more than that. The athleticism and the range and the size and the speed and all of that he has. Now, what is he now compared to 2018 as a true freshman with all of these injuries and broken leg and, shoulders and whatnot? And it's been something, almost every year with him. And so you hope for the best for him. He's got all of the tools. 6th year, came back for a reason, so he's certainly got a target and a destination of his own that he's going to be working towards. So you'd expect when somebody is that focused, you're going to get the best out of them. We just don't know what that best is. We know Jim Knowles has spoken highly of Josh Proctor for quite a while since he arrived. Kai Stokes was the star of the spring in 2022. Probably didn't play as much as I think maybe we may have expected, given the issues at safety last year, but has all of the tools. And I would like to see him get some run at some point this season when the game is on the line, see what he can do in there. But there are, I think, concerns here, but the potential is very good as well. It's just when was the last time the potential worked out for Ohio State at safety? Was it 2019?
Yeah, well, that was a year that everything worked out for the Ohio State defense for the most part. But yeah, that does feel like a spot where, the floor at the bandit spot, at the boundary spot, the floor is just higher because you've got a couple guys who you feel like you sort of know what you have there. The potential at the adjuster spot is certainly there. I mean, Kai Stokes, like you said, was the star of the spring last year, and he flashed again, I think, at times this spring. The big hit you were thinking of was the 2019 Big Ten championship game. Like the last play of the game, Wisconsin's quarterback who, thinking back, I'm trying to remember. That was well after Jim Sorge, but it might have, was that Graham Mertz? Was that
Joel Stave?
Yeah, they've had a lot of quarterbacks who all kind of blend together in your mind. So yeah, it was Jim Stave. So whoever it was, Proctor really laid the lumber there. If you search his name on YouTube, that's one of the things that autofills. Josh Proctor, big hit, Wisconsin or whatever. And that's 4 years ago now. So, you're certainly hoping, as an Ohio State fan, that he has some more memorable highlight reel plays this year. Last year, he started the first game, gave up a big long pass to his now teammate Lorenzo Styles Jr., and then kind of lost that starting job and didn't really get it back for most of the season.
One last thing, and talking to him in the spring, this is the first time since he was a junior and senior in high school that he's been in the same defense and same defensive coordinator 2 years in a row. So that's good. Seven years since he's been in the same defense 2 years in a row. And again, I think that makes everybody faster, quicker, smarter, less, a little more reckless, which is a good reckless, which Jim Knowles is looking for as well.
Absolutely. And that's something that, was sort of a common theme with some of these guys on the defense, guys who've been around a long time. The coordinator has changed on that side of the ball. The scheme has changed on that side of the ball. You finally have now Jim Knowles running the same defense this year that he ran last year, probably with some tweaks in terms of, maybe is he more aggressive? Is he less aggressive at certain spots? But the same general scheme, you're running the same thing. Jim Knowles talked this spring about how, then now you're not starting from square one. Now you're starting with a decent amount of the playbook installed, and now you can kind of just refine and get a little deeper in there and throw in some different stuff. But, that's the ultimate goal there is if you don't have to think, you can play fast, and that's what they're certainly hoping to get out of that adjuster position this year. The third safety spot, this is another one where it's a little bit of a mix of the Bandit, where you've got a player who, I'll say his name and everyone's mind will flash to one bad play last year. That is Cameron Martinez, and he did not have a great time against Michigan last year. It was really just one bad play, but that's that has sort of been something he's been carrying around with him. And it's also a little bit like the adjuster spot, where there's no one there that's really proven in this defense right now. They brought in Tanner McAllister last year from Oklahoma State to sort of be the transitional guy at that spot, having played in the Jim Knowles defense before. He's gone now, so now it's Cam Martinez. It's Jihad Carter, who came in from Syracuse as a transfer, who is familiar with that kind of nickel safety spot, but not in a Jim Knowles defense. And then we saw them mixing in some of the younger outside corners as well, guys like Jair Brown, guys like Ryan Turner this spring. What is it reasonable to expect from the nickel spot this fall?
Well, and Cameron Martinez may have had the best spring of any of the safeties. That might be a fair thing for me to say, actually, because he was making plays. He was solid. Didn't really see him screwing up at all. Although in one scrimmage, I did see him give up a catch to Marvin Harrison. So,
boy, that's. I bet he'll be the only one to do that all year.
Exactly. And then also, maybe that same scrimmage, we saw him get a pick six. So, he made plays. He's a guy that is more comfortable in the defense, more comfortable in his role, has something to prove, especially since they kind of go out to the transfer portal and bring Jihad Carter in to compete for that nickel spot. Now, when we talk to Perry Aliano or Jim Knowles, we'll be like, well, Jihad Carter can play anywhere. And maybe, yeah, all that's true. He could play nickel. Like, they're kind of playing a little dumb about it in terms of everybody sees this and thinks, well, you just brought him in to play nickel. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe we'll give that a go. We'll see how that goes. But then, of course, Jihad Carter gets hurt in the spring. But Carter is a guy that has played all three positions in the secondary and safety for Syracuse in a similar role. He's been deep safety. He's been in the box. He's been in the nickel. I've talked to one NFL scout told me their team was looking at him as a corner even, because he's got decent size. He's 6 foot 6'1", about 200 pounds, and maybe as an inside corner type. But those two guys, very promising. I know we all really like Jair Brown here. His potential as an outside receiver, outside corner, inside corner. This is something that I think both you and I even talked about before the spring, that Jair Brown might be suited well for that inside corner because he is very quick, and he did really impress last year as a true freshman. So I like the possibilities there. I really need to see Jihad Carter healthy, and this is unfortunate that this is his first spring at Ohio State, trying to learn the offense or the defense, trying to get all of the calls, and then you go down with an injury. So now, you would expect that he continued to learn, but it was off the field in the playbook and stuff like that. But I know there are concerns about the nickel. I was impressed with the nickel, though, this year, and at least in terms of Cam Martinez.
And it feels like really all three of those spots, people are kind of in a, show me, don't tell me, show me kind of mode with all three of those. And after the end of last season, I think that's fair. But I don't think I look at this as a position of concern for Ohio State. I think there may be a little bit of uncertainty, But, when we talk about the positions where there's real legitimate concern right now, that they might not have an answer on the roster. I don't know that I look at the safety positions like that. It feels like there is probably an answer, and the answer is probably going to be at least okay. And is it going to be great? It could be, but it's going to at least be okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There are some options. And even at nickel, if those three guys don't work out, and I kind of feel like one of them will, they have Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, Davis, and Igvinosin as outside corners, and one of those guys can move inside. Like, you've got to get that short up. Also, and we're not even going to get into all of this, but, Sonny Styles as a Sam is going to play in some sort of a role there as well in terms of one of those 11 defenders, and that's all up for Jim Knowles to decide how they're going to use him. But I think they're going to have enough answers for all of the safety questions. You just wonder, those 5 baked in big plays, do they keep it to 5 and just cut it off there this year?
Well, and you get that 5 down to 3, and things look very, very different towards the end of last season. So that'll be definitely it is a safety driven defense. It is going to be a safety driven season in some ways for this Ohio State defense and for the Ohio State team on the whole. But it is, I think there is reason for at least cautious optimism there coming out of the spring and heading into the summer and then fall camp starting in August. So while we are sort of wrapping up this series, we'll have one more. We'll get to the offensive line next time, and that's another one where maybe they've got some answers there. We'll see. That certainly felt like coming out of the spring, it was maybe the biggest concern for the Ohio State team. And then have they found the answer in the portal? Well, we'll talk about that next time. So that will be one of the many things we're talking about at BuckeyeHuddle.com this summer and this spring as the Buckeyes sort of get ready to head into what could be a very, very interesting Ohio State season. It is also heading into a very, very busy time in the recruiting trail. Mark Givler and Kevin Noon wrapping up their Southern swing this week. We'll have those guys on early next week to talk about some of the guys that they've seen down there as they've met with some of the best prospects in the country. Ohio State in on a whole bunch of them. So lots of stuff to talk about with those guys. Lots of stuff to talk about with our scheme guys. How is Jim Knowles going to tweak this defense? How is Ryan Day going to change the offense? How will any question mark of an offensive line potentially impact that offense? We're going to be talking about all that stuff and much, much more. Oh yeah, there's a quarterback battle. Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on in the college football world. Would be a great time to be a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com. If your membership is up at a different site pretty soon, well, come on over, join us. Lots of fun insiders, lots of fun community members, lots of fun, good times, lots of great insight and analysis from our whole team, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.